The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Tell Us Why, a podcast for the financial freedom community. If you're looking to succeed in your quest for financial freedom, make sure you join us every week as we, along with our guests, discuss different stories of success, how they were achieved, and how you can do the same. And of course, we ask them to tell us why. Here are your hosts, Jack and Mike.
Welcome to the Tell Us Why podcast. I'm your host, Jack Darrable, here alongside my co-host, Mr. Michael Ketchen. Today we'll be walking through part one of our 10 steps to finding and operating a real estate investment, part one of two. But before we get to that, Mike, what's up?
A very good week. Had a closing. It's a little bittersweet to sell something. I haven't done that before, but if they all make this kind of return, we'll maybe take it under advisement.
Yeah.
We'll go from there. What about you? What you got going on?
Today was a rough day.
I sat on the beach or something.
I was at the beach this morning. It was kind of tough getting off the beach to head up to Salem, New Hampshire, but
the Studio 21
We're
podcast.
so sorry to
Cafe.
inconvenience you.
Podcast
I get to hang out with Chrissy for like the next 3 hours. What are you
fantastic.
Lucky you.
Fantastic.
All right, I am so excited for this. This is going to be great. This is going to be a 10-step process, two-part series. We're going to break it up, and we're going to go step by step with some tips on how to find some deals, and that's going to be some great stuff.
I can dig it.
All right, before we dig into that, though, what should we do?
Probably check in with,
Keith Monty. Keith Monty, sponsor of the Tell Us Why podcast.
Yeah, he's not.
Let's hear who this.
Are you sick of being treated like just another number by large insurance companies? Do you want a more personalized experience with somebody that you can trust? With Keith Monty, that's exactly what you'll get. Keith is an experienced professional who can design an insurance plan tailored to fit your specific needs. With access to over 30 insurance carriers, Keith is able to shop numerous markets to find a price that works for you. So if you want an insurance agent that you can rely on and one that has your best interests at heart, then call or text Keith today on 978-241-2363. That's 978-241-2363. Keith Monty. He'll get you covered.
All right, so let's kick it off. What step you want to start on? Step one or like 9?
Usually they go in order.
Begin at the beginning, I guess?
Begin at the beginning. I feel like that's a T-shirt. We're having too much fun.
Begin at the
it's a-
beginning. Bet on yourself.
Yes.
Pretty sure it's a song from The Sound of Music, but it's all right. It's
Absolutely.
a very good place to start.
All right. So, yes, I think this is important. And I want to start off by saying we are going to break this into 10 steps. This is going to be a very broad overview. This does not encapsulate everything. We would look for you to obviously do a lot of homework, but this is kind of a overview of the 10 steps of a type of investing, a way to get into real estate, and go from there. How does that sound? Sound good?
I like it.
All right, so what is step one?
Step one would be to define your criteria. So what does that mean?
All right, that means that what are you looking for? What kind of asset class? And I know we have a bunch of examples here. Are you looking to do single-family rentals, multifamily? What are some others? House hack?
Mobile home, storage units, office space, industrial.
Airbnb.
Airbnb, yeah. Good one.
I mean, so many, you name it. So why is it important to define your asset class?
Well, it's going to be hard to find something if you're looking at everything. I feel like you need to, especially like dealing with brokers and things of that nature, like you go to them and say, I want a multifamily. They're like, okay.
What size?
How
many doors? How are you
else?
financing
What else you
it?
got
What are
for
you
me?
doing?
One of the tips that I got early on that I think was, I didn't realize at the time, and for people just beginning probably won't realize it now, but if you define your criteria, the more defined your criteria is, the more results you're going to get. So say you want a multifamily that's 8 units in Smithfield, Rhode Island.
Okay.
Like anytime 8-unit multifamily in
Smithfield,
Smithfield, Rhode Island comes on the market, the broker is going to think of you first. So if you said, I want a multifamily in the New England, somebody that sees a multifamily in Smithfield, Rhode Island that's 8 units, which is what you should or what you actually want, they're not going to think of you because they're thinking all of New England. They might forget about you entirely because it wasn't very specific. But if you say Smithfield, Rhode Island, 8-unit, and that comes on the market, The guy
you're
is going
being
to think of
intentional.
you. The individual is going to think of you
Yep.
immediately because of that is your specific criteria.
Being very intentional. And I think the asset class also directly ties to the method. We're going to do a whole future episode on house hacking, but that might be something where essentially you live in part of the property. It can be a single family house with an in-law apartment. It can be a 2-tenement, a 3-tenement, a 4-tenement. You live in one of the units. I guess in theory, you could house hack a commercial building, a multifamily, 5+ units. Another option to that methodology, to Jack's point, is think big and aim small. Yes, we all have big, ambitious goals. It's very important to define those, but by aiming small and going step by step and knowing the method and mastering that method, that becomes very important to also help you zone in on that asset class. So in your example, if we do a segment on house hacking and you decide I want to go from renting to lowering my cost of living in an asset, well, now we can even go granular on that, where you can start to look for single families with in-laws versus 2, 3, and 4 unit tenements. Okay. Yeah. So I think the method is also important. And to Jack's point, having those conversations with brokers, friends and family, doing your research, by aiming small, you're really crystallizing that method. You're going to master that method, and you'll be in a position to work through the rest of these steps, which brings us to location as part of step one. Why is location important?
Well, I mean, it's very important. One of the things that you need to, when I was first beginning, it was everything that you read about real estate investing,
Location,
at least
location,
I did,
location.
is location.
Yep.
And everything that I read prior to my first investment was if you have to invest where you know. So primarily that's local for most individual investors. But now there's tools. So going back to the example, when I first started investing, I knew the Boston area. The Boston area was, at that time, or even now more so, I thought extraordinarily out of my reach just because of the price point.
Yep,
and the returns weren't great on paper. There's ways around that. But so what I did was the only other place that I knew was Tampa market. So I started looking into the Tampa market, analyzing deals, looking at deals,
real estate.
and went long distance. So that is also an option. It's not highly recommended initially among people teaching, but it can be done, and I think is a
I think to your
viable
point,
route.
Yeah, long distance real estate can definitely be done, and where that ties into is neighborhood specific metrics. And to Jack's point, we'll leave some in the show notes. We'll discuss some in the Tell Us Why community. There are resources that can now actually help you define those locations. I mean, one good tip, it's time consuming, but it's a good way to learn it, especially if you're going a long distance, is literally hopping on Google Earth, checking the timestamp of the photos, and walking it on Google Earth.
1,000%. I've walked around so many neighborhoods in the Tampa market,
and it's
especially
free.
It's absolutely
free.
Absolutely.
How powerful is that? It's free. So, and the other important part about location, where it ties back into the method and the asset class, is think about that. If you are going to go into a market that might be more expensive, that you plan on really getting one asset, not necessarily for cash flow, but you're about location and lowering your cost of living, you might want to know the school district in that if you're going to buy, say, a single-family house with an in-law, you're going to house hack. Versus if you're saying, I want a higher cash-on-cash return, I want more cash flow monthly, your lower price point might be in worse areas, but you're going to want to track historic appreciation and what direction is that neighborhood trending in. You can talk to people like the local economic team, local officials, talk to the police, get a feel for that area. Sometimes higher returns aren't always the best thing if they're in rougher areas.
And one of the things that I wanted to touch on, I know you've done just being at your properties in Manchester. One of the things that I did in Clearwater, I had a very defined area. I purchased a property in Clearwater in 2017? Didn't know it very well, was very interested in the Clearwater market. It's proven to pay off very well. But I knew there was basically a specific block of Clearwater that you did not want to be on.
Just same thing in Manchester.
So basically, I saw that Clearwater was gentrifying almost, I guess gentrifying, but I was right on the line. My property is right, like a block above the line, and I thought that was going to move north eventually because basically you're going right into
Path of
Clearwater.
progress.
Path of progress, exactly. So I decided to take the risk and invest in that single-family home rental, and it's paid off. But just again, what I did was walking in the neighborhood and saw that there's like a golf course right there, and just I decided at that time that it was going to be the path of progress.
That was the way to pull the trigger.
And pull the trigger,
Yep.
yeah.
All right, so just last thing we want to step on, then we want to get through these because we got a lot to cover here, is the returns. And there's a lot of ways to define your returns when looking at an investment property. There's things like cap rate, cash on cash return, ROI, IRR. I mean, you can buzz yourself to death with these acronyms. I mean, it's insane. Really, we'll get into deeper conversations, and I would also say that is you can go very deep with all of these.
Yeah.
But what it really boils down to is you know your context, you know what you're chasing, and the more you define that and the more you apply it, whether it's cash flow, whether it's appreciation, whether it's location, whether it's house hack, I mean, you name it. That's very important, and it ties into defining your criteria. If you're after one, make sure the criteria and the asset class you're going after lines up. Sounds simple, but people often get it confused.
Yeah.
So that, I think, does a pretty good job on step one. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. Just going back to the cap rate, cash on cash return, ROI, those are all investment specific metrics. I know I reached out to our social media manager, and we're going to start defining those online.
Oh, that's good.
Basically on
Yeah,
Instagram.
definitely
So
give that to the
basically
community.
Definition, what our interpretation of it, like term, definition, and our interpretation.
Get some of that
it. So we're gonna
financial
start
literacy
getting that
comprehension
out
out
there,
there.
at least on Instagram. I'd like to get it in other places as well. But
Maybe do some reels or something. Yeah, that'd be good.
yeah, reels talking
that's a
through
good
it.
idea.
All about the reels, baby.
All right. So now that we've defined our criteria, step 2 of this process is start looking for a deal through the lens of your criteria. Where can people go to start looking for deals, Jack?
A lot of places. The most obvious, if you're looking for something like a single family, is MLS or Zillow, Realtors, Trulia, all
Yep.
those. They all have the same information. I honestly feel like MLS is overrated. I might be.
MLS is very overrated.
I mean, everything on Zillow, like Zillow pulls from MLS, something goes up, and 9 seconds later, I have an email in my inbox without having access to MLS. So I feel like people overvalue access to MLS.
I think it's a mental stopgap. I think it's something people will use right away. Well, I don't have access to it.
Yeah.
Or I hear this all the time. I'm getting started. I'm looking at the same stuff everyone else is. Okay, well, think about it. Not if you're defining your criteria and you're educating yourself and you're investing and you're starting to get curious about this. Opportunities will exist because they're on the market. But if you're just starting from scratch and you hop on a Zillow search and you haven't defined what you're looking for, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
You're skipping steps. And that's the whole point of this exercise is, you can aim once you know what you're aiming at. And too often we lose sight of that and we go through the different steps and we say, okay, I want to buy rental property. Okay, that's great. Well,
Cool.
awesome. I want a 10,000 square foot mansion in Montana. I mean, wanting is not a plan. Hope is not a fucking plan, like we talk about all the time. So define your criteria.
We have to get that shirt made. We
Yes,
have to.
yeah, that shirt will definitely get made. Got the Dry Fit Tell Us Why swag too, which people are loving. So another place ties back in what you said earlier was brokers. Why are broker relationships so important?
Well, this is something that I've learned recently. I mean, the brokers, they're the ones with the deals.
Yes, they are.
If you're looking for a multifamily, they are getting the information before anybody. So having access to them, going out, making contacts, even just giving them a phone call, stopping by their office. I did that. It was creepy, but just stopped by their office, and I went there and was like, hey, listen, it was like a year and a half ago, but I was like, real estate investor looking for this, my defined criteria.
Define criteria.
My defined
Step
criteria.
one,
If
I love
anything
it.
comes up, let me know. And I mean, that was just the first step in initiating that relationship, but you got to continue to nurture it and stay on their radar. Don't just go meet one time and forget about it.
Well, you also said the thing that I see happen too often here is don't become a tire kicker. And it's a very small world out there, and real estate, above any other business, is a relationship business. So if you get a reputation as just a tire kicker and you really can't pull the trigger and you're not understanding and appreciating and valuing other people's time, why would they bring you business? These are people who get paid when a transaction closes. Yeah. So if they have an opportunity and they have a small window to close that transaction and make that money, they can't waste it on tire kickers. So the way you show them respect, how do you build that relationship? You go to them with a very defined criteria. You also be an open book, value their opinion. Speak the language, know what you're talking about, but also tell them, hey, I'm looking to get in my first deal, or I'm looking to partner on my first deal, or I've done a couple of deals. The more they develop a rapport with you and you're prepared to pull the trigger and actually look at things and respect their time, they will bring you opportunities. And I think, what was a stat we were talking about from a podcast a couple of weeks ago? A gentleman in one of the Florida markets, I think it was Florida North or whatever it was, he tracked 5 years worth of transactions, and it was over 200 transactions. 95% of them came from commercial brokers.
Yeah.
Which you need these people in these relationships because it leads to our next place where we say you can find deals, which is off market.
Off market.
What does that mean to be off market?
So that's a little bit more intricate, I think. I mean, well, not necessarily, but I mean, I attribute off market to like the wholesaling space where people are sending these mailers in the mail to whatever single family houses asking if they want to sell their home, or like We Buy Houses or whatever. There are all those 1,000 different We Buy House businesses. Those are everywhere. So those would be considered off market because they're not listed, I guess, technically on MLS, makes it off market.
Or in Zillow or anything.
Yeah. So basically, it's one of those where somebody has developed a relationship with a home seller or apartment seller, whatever the asset class is, and it's not listed with a broker or a realtor or anything of that nature.
Yep.
So,
and I've done on market, but I prefer off market. I've bought the majority of my business properties off market, and Jack just kind of hit the nail on the head. It is a numbers game. And it's like any sales job. If I look at 1,000 properties that define the criteria of what I'm looking for. So in our case, I'm looking for a 12 to 80 unit value add multifamily property that's been owned and operated by what we call a mom and pop, meaning someone owns it, someone operates it. They're not part of a big conglomerate of thousands of units. This usually leads to opportunity. Exactly. And Jack hit the nail on the head. The off market, what people often misunderstand about that is these are not necessarily dumb people. Like, you're not going to get this smoking deal at such a discount. They know what they have. You're solving a pain point. You're becoming a problem solver. For example, the one we just closed, the one we did the webinar on last night, we were negotiating that for months. And one of the seller's criteria was, I don't want the tenant to be tipped off, so we can't walk the units with an appraiser. You get in once for 10 minutes, and that's it. I had to rely on my experience and my team and negotiate a price to bake in that extra risk. But it was that relationship and hearing what he wanted. Now he has 10 other properties we're working on and we get first crack at because we built that relationship. Yeah. So that one off-market transaction can lead to possibly another 10 or so transactions. The last one I've got a ton from too, networking. I know networking is huge. Why is networking huge in the real estate space?
I mean, networking can be something as simple as telling your parents, your uncle,
everybody,
that you're looking to invest in real estate. I mean, it doesn't have to be going to meetups, which is extraordinarily valuable. I'm not downplaying that whatsoever, but everybody you meet, tell them that you're looking to invest in real estate.
Yep.
Say, I'm looking, or if you have your defined criteria, give them your criteria right at that moment. I'm looking for a duplex in whatever Scranton.
I want a house hack. I'm an FHA buyer. I got 3.5% to put down.
I mean, if somebody comes across or knows a neighbor that's in whatever Scranton, I don't know why I'm making up random places, but Scranton, Pennsylvania. But I mean, if that comes up, somebody again, they're going to think of you. They're going to be like, oh, Scranton, Pennsylvania, 2-family or duplex. Here we go.
And jumping on that networking element, where it ties into the relationships in the off market, I have now done 4 or 5 deals that have been probate deals that happened from networking because people had, families unfortunately were going through probate. They had properties they had to sell fast. They knew I did this, so they reached out to me. So I'm getting properties at a steep discount because I can solve the problem from my networking and my off-market relationships. So it all ties together. I'm talking about it. Everybody who knows me knows, hey, Mike Ketchin's a real estate investor. This is what he's doing.
Whether they like it or not, they know about it.
Exactly. And you need to be out there. You know, I'm a big believer in we attract what we seek. You know, what we give our attention to grows. So if you're not talking about this, you're not networking, you're not investing in yourself and investing your time towards this, the results you get are going to be a direct product. They're going to be tied in directly to that. Yeah. So you got to put that in place.
Just quickly, what is a probate?
Probate is a process that unfortunately when someone passes away, their estate can go through it. And it usually involves attorneys and who's ever ahead of the state, the will, the executor of the will, the state of wherever they reside. These ones were all Massachusetts, but I'm pretty sure every state has probate. That'd be more of a lawyer question, which we'll have a lawyer on in a couple of weeks. Maybe we can ask her that question for real estate investing. But yes, that is networking, and I think that's a good overview of step number 2 in the process, which leads to step number 3.
Step number 3, my favorite.
What is it?
I dig this stuff. I'm a numbers guy.
Yes,
so.
Oh, God, yes, you do. Paralysis analysis here.
Hey, no, I pulled the trigger. That was one of my biggest concerns. I'm just going to run the numbers.
Yeah.
So step 3 is run the numbers.
Yes. Well, what does that mean? What numbers? Geometry? Trigonometry? I hate
Yeah,
math.
it's why you take AP calculus so you can do algebra. And
Yes.
I was actually complaining to my son the other day. He's 9. He doesn't care. He doesn't get it. But I was like, why did I take AP calculus? Like, I never use any of that stuff. I don't even know how to do algebra anymore. Like,
He's like,
what's
"Dad,
the point
I'm
of
gonna
learning
pay
that?
for
Yeah,
it."
I was flipping on
Leave me
for like
alone.
10 minutes, and he was on his way to hockey practice. I'm like,
He's like, who cares? Dad,
it's
stop being a
useless.
victim. So anyways, with that said, run the numbers. What does that mean? What numbers are we running?
So rent numbers, purchase price, what else is relevant? Expenses, taxes, insurance,
Maintenance,
repairs, CapEx, all those numbers.
Exits, all that. That sounds overwhelming. Are there any resources to help people with that?
There are some. There's a few. There's some readily available online.
Might there be a Tell Us Why
And there might be
calculator
a
coming?
Tell Us Why calculator on
Might
its
be
way.
coming,
I'm
yes.
not sure.
All right. Yes. So to Jack's point,
I feel like I just got suckered into
yes,
releasing
you
my
did.
calculator.
Yes, you did. See what I did there?
Podcast the other night.
So
the
webinar.
webinar the other night.
Yeah, don't say this is a podcast with Chrissy. She'll get mad. So to that point, she's angry. She's hitting buttons over there. So to that
Cancel
point,
the show.
we're canceled. We're all
You're
out here.
canceled.
So to that point on running the numbers, this is very important, and I feel like we overthink it. Actually, I know we overthink it. A lot of the most successful people I've met in this space, I'm talking like the biggest. Yes, they get the numbers. Yes, they can look at a spreadsheet and geek out with you, but it comes back to execution. So when you're first getting started, do a quick Google search or use a generic rule of thumb. Bigger Pockets is a great shout out to them. They're a great resource. They use the 50% rule. As you get experienced, maybe one day we'll talk about that. I don't agree with it, but it is a good baseline.
It's a baseline
Example.
to quickly analyze a deal.
So I think what's out there is a lot of people will look at a property and they'll go, oh, well, if I buy this 2-family and each unit rents for $2,000, I bring $4,000 in, and the mortgage is, say, $2,000, I make $2,000. Not exactly. You have insurance, you have utilities, you have taxes. You need to put aside some for repairs.
Debt service.
Yeah, the debt service, the mortgage. As you start plugging these things in, that's what I mean by run the numbers. And the only way you get better at doing this is by running the numbers. So what we will do in the show notes is we will drop some links to some great resources for running the numbers. And we will find a way to get you involved in the Tell Us Why community. And if you want a copy of the Tell Us Why calculator, we will get it to you. So definitely hop in the webinars, check out the community, but we will help you run the numbers. But yes, at the end of the day, you need to practice running the numbers on any type of deal you're looking at.
Yeah, and I mean, I cannot stress that enough. Going back to the long distance real estate investing, I decided that I was going to invest in the Tampa market for multiple reasons. But one of the first things I did, I was like, well, I don't know what good numbers look like down there. Like there wasn't any like online resource that says like, hey, this is a great deal. Like it doesn't exist. So
Make life very easy if it did.
basically what I did was just basically everything that came up, again, just a simple Zillow, before reaching out to a broker or anything like that, went on Zillow and looked at, I was looking for single family rentals at the time.
Yep.
Basically anything that was on there, clicked on it, was like, this is going to be the debt service. Actually, that's how the whole Tell Us Why calculator came to existence, because I wanted to understand every metric. So I went through and built a calculator.
Of course you did.
Because I'm a nerd like that. I'm a numbers guy.
All right.
But went through and basically built the calculator, ran the numbers. I mean, you can do it online, usually on online calculator. But then basically ran through the deal, like hundreds of deals, probably 200 plus before. And then one came across my desk, and I was like, this is absolutely a deal. Like
So you had to
running
pull
my
it.
numbers, and then I was like,
Which-
all right, if I don't do this one, I'm gonna
So the numbers make
I'm
sense.
never gonna do it.
And that leads to the next step, which is
make an offer.
make an offer. Sounds simple, however, it is something people struggle with. So yes, step 4 is make an offer. What does that mean? Well, it means you need to understand, again, what asset class you're going after, what you're hoping to accomplish, what type of return. If it is a single family house or a residential property, you can contact an attorney directly. You can contact a title agency. You can use find contracts online. I wouldn't advise that, but you can. You can go through a broker. All these different steps. But yes, you need to submit an offer, which goes back to having these relationships and doing your research up front will leave you in a better position to actually submit the offer. It can be scary, it can be overwhelming, but if you've been networking and you've been talking to attorneys, talking to other investors, working with brokers, working with agents, building relationships, you can make it a little less scary when you're submitting those offers. There's going to be a lot of unknowns in your first few, but you'll get through those together. And any other tips on the offer stage?
I mean, it's not going to get comfortable until you're at the point where you've done it more than once. So the first time is going to be uncomfortable no matter what. Like, I thought I had a tremendous deal. I did have a tremendous deal, but I was still nervous. I thought about backing out. Every single deal that I make an offer on, I consider backing out because until I talk to Mike and he gives me credit for it. But I mean, it's going to happen. You're gonna come up with excuses in your head of why you shouldn't do it, and it's going to be easier to not do it. You just live the status quo. The status quo is easy, but the status quo isn't going to make you financially free either.
Yes.
So
you know what is going to make you financially free? Step 5. Because step 5 is when that offer is accepted.
now what?
Boom, Yahtzee. You throw a party, you're printing money. It's like playing Monopoly, you're rich. No, step 5 is your offer is accepted. This is when it gets real. And it's a euphoric feeling. It's also a terrifying feeling. Like, you should get a little nervous. You just
Get
made
those
a
butterflies in your stomach.
commitment
It's
to
good, it's good.
spend hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars that oftentimes in real estate we don't have. We don't even know where it's coming from. But as anyone who knows me knows, I like to say, we'll figure it out. And yes, your offer is accepted, so you're going to have to come up with usually an earnest money deposit or some type of deposit.
Yep.
Your contract is going to be very important. In some states, it goes from offer to purchase and sale. So Massachusetts is a 2-step process. New Hampshire is a 1-step process. It's directly to purchase and sale. But once that offer gets accepted, now the fun begins. And I think that's when we get into the next 5 steps,
week,
right?
huh?
That will be for episode 2, part 2 of this 10-part series. So with that,
So if you don't already follow us on social media, you can find
Why
us
don't
on... Yeah, what's wrong with you?
what's up with you?
Come on.
Follow
You can
us.
find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, basically every platform there is. All the links are in the description below. If you're new and just listening for the first time, make sure you head over to our YouTube and subscribe.
Click that subscribe button or leave a rating and review on iTunes. It greatly, greatly helps. As Jack said, you can check us out everywhere. And even better, if you're in the New Hampshire area, come check us out, the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. We record most Wednesdays live, and we'd love to have you in studio. And also, if you want to get your hands some Tell Us Why swag, Jack is wearing some this week. And we have some awesome Tell Us Why dry fits with hashtag betting yourself across the back.
Bet on yourself.
That's right. What is the quote of the week?
Wrap it up with the quote of the week. It's an Andrew Carnegie. 90% of all millionaires become through owning real estate.
Become
just a
so
fun
through
note,
owning real estate?
Fun note, Carnegie died in 1919 and is still relevant today. But that's it for today. Be sure to join us next on next week's episode. Until next week,
Bet on yourself.
boom!
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.